My mind is playing tricks on me. A Datura trip report by Datura, posted at earwig.org September 19th, 2003. First off, I would just like to say, never ever do this drug. The high was impossible to describe, other than scary, feverish, and delirious. My brother showed us a plant one day, and said he had read about it on this website. He told us that if you eat a pod of seeds, you get a trip similar to mushrooms mixed with acid. Since I had never tried acid, and I had never had mushrooms work on me, I was quite curious to try it, especially since it was free. Me and a few friends picked about 10 pods and went to my friend's house. His parents were gone to the cottage for a couple of weeks, so we decided it was the perfect time. We had all just sniffed a pill or two of E, and it wasn't really affecting me too much, so we decided to start our adventure. We took the seeds out of 4 pods, crushed them in a mortar and pestle, then boiled the seeds for about 20 minutes, putting the seeds and water into a tea kettle, and putting 2 tea bags in to sit. We let it sit for about 10 minutes, and the 4 of us prepared our first cup each. We added lemons to it since the seeds had such a bitter taste. We drank 2 cups each, and then me and one other friend split the 4 pods between the 2 of us. The E was just getting to the peak when I had finished the tea, and I went outside for a smoke. I got outside about 5 minutes after finishing the tea, and that's when we ate the seeds. In about 10 minutes, after I'd finished my smoke, I started getting dizzy and feeling very frustrated. About 10 more minutes passed since I'd consumed the actual seeds, and now I could not control my vision at all. Shadows and darker objects would blend into each other, and everything seemed to move to the right. I was now beginning to hallucinate, and started to get very scared. I was later told that I was curled up into a ball, sitting on a chair on the front porch, talking to myself and drooling. During this time, I remember talking to 5 bikers who came to the house looking for me and my friend to beat up. I was scared, so I went into the fetal position and fell off of the chair. When I stood up, all my friends appeared out of nowhere. They weren't there when the bikers approached me, and they were asking if I felt the Datura yet. I suddenly felt a lot less alone, and somehow I was practically sober again. My vision returned to normal for the moment, and I could have a conversation without mumbling. I was asking my friends if they were feeling it yet, and they all said no, except my friend who I split the seeds with. Everyone then went back inside, except for me and my friend who was tripping, and I started to feel it again. But this time, it was much more potent. I started to see squirrels and raccoons all over the front yard, and they seemed to have spotted me. They all stopped to look at me and began running at me. I again curled up into a ball and rolled around on the ground as they attacked me. When I noticed that I felt no pain, I looked up to see 4 cop cars stopping in front of the house. Scared that they saw me defending myself from imaginary animals, I lit up another cigarette and tried to play it cool. As I looked up after sparking the smoke, the cops had disappeared and a dragon was floating in front of us. My friend, they jumped to his feet and screamed, "Look, they've thrown him off the balcony!" The fat guy threw him off the balcony. He then looked at me with the most serious look on his face and said, "He's dead, man. He's dead. He's dead. He's deader than dead. We should call the cops." I don't know if this really happened, but he picked up his shoe and tried to dial 911. When nothing happened, he threw the shoe across the yard and ran into a bush and started crying. By now, I was starting to realize that almost everything was an illusion. But it seemed so real, I could not separate the illusions from reality. A feeling of aloneness, anxiety, as if I was claustrophobic and trapped in a small box, and severe restlessness washed over me. When I looked at the bush to see if my friend really ran and hid there, I saw a little girl hung from a tree branch, with blood coming out of her mouth. I turned around because I was pretty sure it wasn't real, and yet she was standing inches away from my face, screaming. I then started to cry and wanted to get off of the drug as quickly as I could. As most other users of Datura have noted, my mouth was really dry, and my throat burned the whole time. I decided it was time to go inside where my friends could comfort me and try and help me get off my high. As I said before, I felt like I was being trapped in a really small place, and my skin felt like it was burning and itching. I was in severe physical and mental discomfort. I remember dropping to my knees, praying to God to help me get off of this drug. I drank about 5 cups of water simultaneously. I felt something wet on my feet, and as I looked down, I saw myself standing in a pool of water. From my earlier experiences, I realised rationally thinking and turning away from what I was visualising would get rid of my hallucinations. I drank 1 more cup of water and decided to go watch TV to try and focus my attention on something real. As I was in the kitchen drinking the water, I could see all of my friends sitting around the table, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. I was watching Jerry Springer, and I could hear muffled voices but couldn't understand what they were saying. I then started feeling very angry and frustrated, so I looked to see who was talking. As I looked over where the voices were coming from, the voices became clear, and I was suddenly in a room filled with all of my friends who were not in there moments before. They were yelling and rolling joints, and I kept yelling as loud as I could, "Shut up! Shut up!" Then I looked towards the entrance of the room and my friend was doing cartwheels. I looked back to see if anyone else noticed my friend doing these cartwheels. And to my surprise, the room was empty and the TV was not even on. I could clearly remember the episode of Jerry Springer, and I was now becoming very scared and uncomfortable. The next thing I know, I woke up to the sound of knocking on the window. I looked over, saw nothing, and then looked again, seeing 3 burnt faces simultaneously popping up to the window, screaming. I then actually woke up in cold sweats, feeling the sudden need to vomit. I tried to stand up but fell flat on my face, and after putting all my energy into it, I finally got up and wandered to the washroom, bumping into every wall on the way there. My friends who were sober asked me if I was alright, and I tried to say yes, but I just started screaming in pain. I felt as if I was dying, and I ran into the washroom. Every movement I made sent a rumbling effect throughout my whole body. I tried to throw up, but all I could do was cough and burp. I wanted to get the Datura out of my system, so I shoved my fingers into my throat trying to vomit. Nothing would work. I was crying and shaking, and my skin felt as if it was on fire. After 10 minutes, the nausea wore off, and I went back to the couch I was sleeping on. Again, I felt as if I was going to vomit, and repeated my last mission to the washroom, but could not get myself to vomit whatsoever. I then started punching myself in the head, knocking my head off of walls, trying anything to make myself sleep, and nothing would work. I then vomited all over myself, passing out from the numbing in my brain. I woke up in heaven, flying through clouds and rainbows, seeing all of my friends I was with above me, looking down with very concerned faces. I felt as if it was a warning, telling me that I was almost on my deathbed and that I was messing with very dangerous substances that I was not educated on. As I floated around, my life was flashing through my mind like in a movie right before you die. I saw my family at my funeral all crying, and my friends as well. I was speaking to a voice that was telling me that this is what will happen when you waste your life away. The voice said that this time I was lucky, but next time I won't be. And then was back floating through the rainbows and clouds, wishing I could be there forever. I decided this wouldn't be the last time I tried Datura, since I could not recall any of the events that previously happened. But then I saw the concerned faces above me, and reality set in, and the faces were real. I was lying on the washroom floor with puke all over me, and my friend was screaming at me to wake up. I stumbled back to my bed, passed out, feeling relieved that I was alive. All the illusions had now stopped, but the burning was still present. I felt as if my whole body was sunburnt and itchy. I woke up the next day and looked at my watch to see what time it was, yet all I could see was a blur. Now, sober enough to know what is real, I was truly frightened and believed I had gone blind. For the next 6 hours, I could not read anything before 2 feet in front of me. Anything past that was perfectly clear. It has now been approximately a month since I did the Datura, and the effects are still present. I still sometimes have trouble seeing, and in the dark I still see shadows move and blend into each other. I have very realistic dreams that are hard to distinguish from reality, and I may believe that some of my dreams were real. I now talk during my sleep because of the vividness of the dreams, and my skin is still super sensitive. Well, that was my experience in Datura, and I'll get my friend to also write up his experience since he consumed Datura 4 days in a row after that very night, against my wishes. I'll let him elaborate on the details, but his experience was much more unbelievable than mine.